Hello, this is Kelly Holowecki, and welcome to my Unit 2 mini presentation where I'll be discussing an overview of the Lyceum movement in 19th century America. The early Lyceum was founded by Josiah Holbrook, and this committee met for the first time in 1826 in Millbury, Massachusetts. The name came from the Greek word for the public meeting space where Aristotle lectured. According to Holbrook, he had 5 reasons for creating the Lyceum. The first was to develop mutual instruction in the sciences and in useful knowledge generally. Second was to follow the efforts of men of views enlightened enough upon education to see its defects and its wants. The next, to encourage, through the establishment of village associations, the rapid increase of general diffusion of knowledge and the raising of the moral and intellectual taste of our countrymen. To check the progress of that monster intemperance, and to divert the attention of the young from places and practices which lead to dissipation and to ruin. By 1834, there were 3,000 lyceums in America, and they continued to flourish up until the American Civil War. Initially, the lectures were supplied by the community, but by 1840, they became professional institutions and they used paid outside lecturers. Part of the reason they were able to flourish was because they were inexpensive to attend. For example, a lifetime membership only cost $10. Holbrook once wrote a book and it listed the benefits and purposes of the lyceums, and these included the improvement of conversation through debates that happened at these lectures, directing amusement for children, and this happened through activities that were useful and educational, calling to use neglected libraries, and increasing the advantage and raising the character of the district school. Public schools were a major topic of discussion at the Lycea, and they contributed to broadening school curricula and the development of local museums and libraries. During the 1820s and 1830s, special teachers' lyceums provided outlets for practicing teachers interested in hearing lectures related to their profession. The early Lycea included topics on nature, science, and literature, and later on this expanded to music, drama, and performances after the Civil War. Initially, when the Lycea were created, they did not include women's education, but this did quickly change, and winter programs, which were also very popular, had several women's clubs who discussed topics like art, music, literature, civics, and economics. As I mentioned, the early Lycea did not include music at all. At the time, public was opposed to music and commercialization, and since both were linked, it's unknown now if the objection was due to the music or to the commercialization itself. After the Civil War, lyceums provided both education and entertainment for its audiences, and speakers gave lectures on a variety of topics from history to literature to scientific theories, and there were also concerts and plays at this time. In 1879, there was an editorial in the All Times that actually scolded audience members for their lack of musical sophistication. Objections to music on stage may have subsided with the inclusion of lectures about or involving music. By the late 19th century, musical topics became very popular. Louis Charles Elson was the head of the New England Conservatory, and he lectured many times on topics in music. So I wanted to take a moment just to give you guys an idea of the kind of repertoire that you would hear about music. Some of his included the songs and legends of the sea, our national music and its sources, Shakespeare in music, the story of German music, the troubadours and their descendants, 7 centuries of English song, and old Scottish history and song. Despite the popularity of the Lyceum prior to the Civil War, they never really regained their momentum afterwards. And some of the reasons for this downfall included the infrastructure, the local lycea being dissatisfied with national policies. And one article even mentioned some financial burdens due to traveling lecturers who were charging too much for smaller towns to afford, and even some lecturers who were booked and wouldn't show, so they would have to reimburse all the tickets. The lectures at the Lyceum created more of a demand for teachers and more appreciation from the community for educators. It also promoted education for varied socioeconomic backgrounds by making the education affordable for everyone. The next three benefits were written by E.P. Powell in 1895. In my opinion, a couple of them are a little overinflated, but it gives you an idea of how people thought at the time. According to him, the Lyceum helped to kill slavery, it broke the power of superstitious theology, and it made women free. Some other benefits include the universal demand for higher culture, and they eventually led to the Chautauquas, which were the daughter of the Lyceum. Now, this is particularly important for music because the Chautauquas were more, at that time, they were more open to the idea of music. So the Lyceum kind of set the stage for music and the arts being included in these lectures. Named after its city of origin in New York, the Chautauquas continued the culture of lecturing on literature, music, and several other topics, and they even live on today. Let's take a look.
This place is about as American as anything gets.
Truly, I think there is no replica of Chautauqua.
It started in 1874 as a place to educate Sunday school teachers during the summer months.
The peace of God be with you.
Chautauqua wouldn't be Chautauqua if it didn't have that kind of a religious founding.
What began in a remote corner of western New York grew into a national movement. When that movement ended in the 1930s, the original gathering place carried on.
It's hard to believe that a place that was so important for creating modern American culture has been so largely forgotten in the country.
Chautauqua embraces education as a lifelong pursuit.
First of all,
You're exposed not simply to one thing, but it's art, it's also education, it's current events,
These kinds of incentives help fuel economic growth.
religion, recreation.
I think there are other places that have some of the elements of Chautauqua, but not all of the elements.
Let's take a minute to review. The Lyceum provided conversation for educational system and curricula and provided education for the masses. It was the first form of organized adult education and it was affordable to all. The Lyceum movement evolved to include music after the Civil War, and it eventually led to the Chautauqua movement where music was readily accepted in topics and performance.